Alright, so now I'm going to talk about how to configure your VirtualBox after you have it installed. So the first thing you do is go ahead and launch your VirtualBox. And then I'm going to go over a couple of quick settings here with you. So if we want to create a new virtual, we're going to click on New. And here we're going to have a wizard that's going to walk us through on how to set it up. So we're going to go ahead and hit Next. Here we're going to give it the VM's name, so whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to call it, mine is an example, Windows 8. So as you type in the name, you can see here that it's going to change the operating system's vendor and version. So if you click on the pull down menu, you can see the different choices and the different versions here. You can see that this also supports 32 and 64, but you have to be installed on the 64-bit OS, your host OS, which is the operating system that you booted into. So mine particularly only supports 32, so I'm only going to see 32-bit choices. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and hit Next. And here I'm going to allocate how much memory. You can see I have 3 gig available in my system. So I've got default as a gig, which is good. I'm going to go ahead and choose Next. Here, this basically means if we are going to use an existing VM, so if someone gave us an existing file, we would say we're going to use an existing. If we're doing this from scratch, we're going to go ahead and use the default, which is create a new disk. And then here is basically the 4 file types that virtualization uses. So the top one is for VirtualBox. Second one would be for if you're trying to get this to work in VMware. And the second or the third one down, which would be VHDs, which is the Microsoft virtualization. And the last one, which is parallel. So if you're running this in a Mac, you would be able to launch the VMs in that. So we're going to use the top choice by default since we are using VirtualBox. It makes sense. So we go ahead and hit Next. Here you're going to be able to dynamically allocate a disk space. So that basically means as you fill the VM with information, it will grow in size to the size you specified. And fixed, but basically will take up that much storage immediately. So I would recommend going with dynamic. And then here, it's default to 20 gigs. I can go in here and put in, I'm going to go change it to 25. So make sure it says gigs. You don't want megs. Always won't be able to install anything with 25 megs. So you're going to hit Next. It's going to give you a quick summary. Go ahead and hit Create. And then here it's going to say, here's what you made. So we're going to go ahead and click Finish. Alright, so now a couple of things we need to configure for this to work. So we're going to go ahead and right-click, click on Settings. So here's a couple tabs I'm going to go through. The big ones is Storage. Here you have, basically you have your disk controller and your CD. So you're going to select CD. And then from here you can choose if you have multiple CD-ROM drives, physical CD-ROMs, or if you have ISOs, you can go ahead and click Choose Virtual Disk. And then you can browse to where your ISOs are at. So something new in the new features, it supports the Mac file, which is DMG, ISO, and CD. So these are the main file formats. So then you're going to go ahead and choose one versus the other. I don't have any ISOs currently downloaded, so I won't be using any ISOs at this point. I would go ahead and select one if I had one in here. The next important part is the network features. So by default, you have one network adapter. If you wanted multiples, you would just choose them and click Enable. So the main things here you need to be aware of, you have not attached, basically means you have no network card. You have NAT, that basically acts as a NAT, like a NAT router, so it hides you behind your VM. If you want your physical machines and your VMs to communicate between each other, then I would go with Bridge. So that basically means that the adapter will be bridged, so you're not going to be nabbed behind your host machine. So your guest machine will have its own IP address that's on the same network. In internal, if you're going to set up a small little network and have one VM act as a router and give it a outside interface, I would choose that. I'm going to choose the bridge adapter, and then here basically gives you your only one you can choose from. You can go to your different settings, so you can choose if it's going to be Intel. So if you wanted to use a specific type network card for your VM, you can choose it there, and then choose your MAC address. And something new here, you can allow promiscuous mode. So that's kind of a nice little feature. So I'm just going to go with the default, hit OK. And then at that point, all I would do is click Start, and then basically this is just going to tell you, hey, we're going to capture your keyboard mouse. If you want to, unlock your keyboard, you got to use the right control key. And then I'm just going to hit OK. And then basically this will fire right up if I had a CD-ROM drive installed. This would start right up. Alright, this concludes this video on how to set up. Thanks for your time.